which include the spoken word, vocal inflection, facial expressions, body gestures. Lots of different aspects to it. I find it a fascinating study. It's an area I always want to improve in, and I have a feeling in this group, very likely we all feel that we would like to improve in that area. I was in my mid-20s when I began to put thought into how I communicated. I thought back to a friend I had in high school, and she was one who was kind enough to give me a bit of an inkling into the way I said things and how I said them and how it impacted our relationship. So it caused me to think back to a lot of high school relationships I had, and even though I was a person that really enjoyed people and enjoyed being around them and encouraging them, when there came to be kind of a disagreement, it became more like a battle. Communication became like, I need to win this, and I need to get my thought out, and I must be heard, and I didn't like it. I kind of got into my 20s, I was married, and I had a son, and I wanted to have a different impact in my world and in my life. So I began to take pains to think about it, to work with my husband, who was a very different communicator than I, and begin to change the person I was and how I was perceived and how I communicated with others. In my 30s, I decided to do a bit more of a formal study, and I went back to school to complete a bachelor's degree. And one of the classes I took at Palomar College, I started there again, was called Introduction to Linguistics. And I remember the very first day of class, he did an exercise with us, and up on the board he wrote 4 words. It was something along this line. And there were 4 words that he said, okay, let's put these words in order. And without fail, we in the class put the words into the same order. And I think that was something that just caused me to think, how fascinating is language and how innate is communication, that we can all come to a point where we're strangers in this classroom, but yet we can have such a similar frame of reference. And if I were to say it here publicly tonight, a cat jumped over
the high brown fence.
All right, the high brown fence. Absolutely. It's something that we are just so part of who we are and so part of our language. And that was kind of a point that really caught my attention and caused me to say, I'll do some more. But linguistics wasn't the field for me. I began to realize that I wasn't going to travel all over the world and find a people group with an undocumented language and figure out that language and write it down. I was a wife and a mother, a preschooler. That wasn't going to happen in my life, as fascinating as that sounded. So I instead went a different direction, and I became a communication major and finished my bachelor's degree in that field and in that area. It was an area that I was pleased I chose, as I found that I used it quite a bit while I was learning it, but it's also an area I refer back to often in my workplace as well. And I'm thankful for that, to have spent that time and to move forward. So I would like to just give a couple of examples that have been fun at my workplace, because not only does language encompass so much, and human communication encompass so many facets, one of the areas I've enjoyed is semantics, meaning and understanding of what we're saying. And I work with a couple of gals, and I'm sure we all do, and I love chatting with folks who aren't native English speakers, who have learned English as a subsequent language, and there are 2 gals. One's Bulgarian, and her name's Rumi. English is her 3rd language. The second was Russian, and she's fun, and she's great to work with. She's our IT director. And we had a lunch at our work. We were celebrating something of the company, or a holiday, and the next day we had enough leftovers that we all could eat what was there for everybody who was in the office. And since I was one of those who wanted to eat the food that was there, I warmed it all up and got it all ready and let my colleagues know that lunch is ready if you'd like to enjoy it. So we're sitting there about to dish up, and my Bulgarian friend Rumi, she's like, "It's a fist!" And I remember I just looked at her and I thought, "It's a fist!" And I just started, what is she saying? And I think I've known her for a year and a half, and all I could think of were the 2 athletes in the 1968 Olympics who raised their fist to the national anthem. I thought, what does Rumi, how does she relate to Black Power? I don't know what it is. Finally, I mean, that's introduction, and she's like, it's a fist, Cynthia, a fist. And finally, when my colleagues rescue me, she says, Cynthia, it's a feast. Well, thank you so much. I needed to know that. And she's such a good sport. She's like, Cynthia, you know me long enough. You know my accent. I wish I could do it for you, but I can't. Another colleague I have, her name is Sylvia, and she is German. And she was raised in Germany, and she came to America as an adult. English is her second language, and she has a bit of an accent, but she's an editor in our company, and I have a somewhat editing role in my position, so we work closely together and enjoy chatting back and forth with our guttural languages and such, and comparing meanings and such. And she loves idioms, American idioms. And I still remember one day when I was sitting at work, and I faced this direction in a sense. I don't know which direction I face, but I'm going to face this direction. I'm working, and she walks by my office, and as she walks by, she just looks in and says, good morning. And I said, well, fancy meeting you here. And she kind of looks in, and she keeps walking, and then she stops, and she backs up, and she looks and she said, what'd you say? And I said, well, fancy meeting you here. Is that good? And it's been so much fun over the years to work with folks like Rumi and Sylvia, and to have some formal training and have casual training and enjoy relationships in which I can learn to better communicate. I can step out a bit of my box and my frames of reference and my background and what I may be thinking on a situation, and improve how I can relate and work with those around me, and both in a professional situation and in a casual situation. And human communication, the study of it, it's the best thing since sliced bread.
In front of you, you'll find one of these little sheets. Please make comments, feedback.